All right, so we have a quorum, and since it's 8:01, why don't we get going? Okay. John go ahead.
Yep.
I'm ready. Okay, great. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Friday, December 3rd meeting of the Westwood School Building Committee. I'm calling this meeting to order with a roll call attendance. I know Ken isn't here and Josh can't make it. Brian Baer.
Here.
Allison cannot make it. I don't see Chris Coleman. So, all right, John Cummings.
Here.
Charlie Donahue.
Here.
Pam Dukeman.
Here.
I don't see Mary Kate. Jen Flanders.
Here.
Abby Hanscom.
Good morning.
Good morning. Lema Jean-Baptiste.
Here.
I don't see Josepha. I know Matt can't make it. Carol Lewis. Saw you, Carol. Carol, you here?
Yep,
Okay.
I'm here. Sorry,
Oh,
I had to
okay.
step away for a sec.
Okay. Michelle Miller.
Here.
Tony Mullen.
Here.
Emily Parks.
Here.
I don't see Amanda and I don't see Mike Walsh. I do see Chris Coleman.
Here.
Okay. All right. Great. I'd like to recognize the live stream available online at www.westwood.k12.ma.us/live to provide real-time public access to the activities of the School Building Committee in accordance with an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. This meeting is also recorded for later broadcast on Westwood Media Center's platforms. And as always, we thank them for their continued support and assistance. I don't have much to report in the chair's report. Nothing, I think we'll discuss most things in the discussion. So we're going to go right into discussion items. I'm going to turn it over to Rob for a project status update.
Great. Thanks, Maya. So good morning, everyone. We'll jump right in. Today we're going to go over a project update. We've got a 3-month look ahead. We'll also be talking about aesthetics and design subcommittee discussion that we had earlier this week. Before we get into that, I just wanted to make a note. Yesterday, we had a presentation that we gave Dorn Whittier, Emily, and Maya during 3 different segments. Yesterday gave a presentation to, I think what I heard was about 40 different school districts that participated in this MSBA workshop for net zero energy schools. And there were, I think, maybe 6 or 7 other school districts that were also presenting, about their school projects. And there was probably about 150 attendees. And I thought it went really well. We received some good feedback. I don't know if Emily or Maya, you had any other comments, but I thought it was great that we were able to participate in that and highlight a lot of the great stuff that we're doing in Westwood.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. I would say I thought it was really interesting too. It was fun to participate, and it was interesting to hear from sort of the wide array of school districts that were represented. So we were kind of talking about our school in the woods and how we're approaching that and the connection to outdoors. And then we also heard from schools that are working on very tight sites in urban environments. And we heard from agricultural schools down on the Cape. So it was just interesting to see how everybody is kind of approaching their situation from a different angle. But we were all talking about ultimately the issue of sustainability. It was a good day.
Yeah, and I really found interesting that Bristol Aggie discussion. I didn't realize that they had composting toilets there. And they're one of the only schools in the state with composting toilets, and invited everybody to come down and take a look at them. And
yeah.
So I'm pretty interested in that, actually.
Yeah, I think there were a lot of invites floating around
Yeah.
saying, come see us, come see us. I thought it was a great day.
Yeah.
Kudos to the MSBA for putting on a very well run and efficient program. And, they would lose time and then they'd make it up somehow. So
Yeah.
I thought it was, and we were, of course, very happy to be asked to participate. So that was nice.
One takeaway I had also was the fact that we're being so cost conscious as a group here in Westwood. While it's an issue everywhere, it didn't seem like it was highlighted as much as it was here, which I think is very good.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. So the 3-month look ahead. So we had the aesthetic and design meeting earlier this week that I mentioned. We'll go over that in a bit. Today's meeting. Next week, we've got another aesthetics and design meeting in person to review interior finishes. We'll bring in actual samples for discussion and review. December 14th is our planning board continuation hearing. We'll be submitting updated drawings to them today, actually, for their review in preparation for that. December 21st, we submit our 60% CD package to cost estimators. And then looking ahead to January, we'll be looking to begin to set up this sort of room data sheet review and sign off. So that's something that May and Emily, we should talk about and be thinking about, who wants to be part of that. This is kind of like circling back on each of the spaces in the building. Some of the spaces are pretty straightforward, really haven't changed much, and might just need kind of a cursory review. Other spaces, we might have made some minor adjustments and have a little bit more discussion points to talk about, like the library, for example. But this is getting into the next level of detail, kind of like looking at electrical outlets, locations, and placement of different things in the room, just making sure that everyone is satisfied with where we're at before we go out to bid. So this will be the sort of like the final review of that. January 12th, we'll be receiving our 60% cost estimates. And the 21st is our school building committee meeting to authorize 60% CDs. So in between the 12th and the 21st, we'll be taking a close look at the cost estimates. There is some concern, looking ahead with unknowns on costs, looking ahead to the next 6 or 7 months with the climate out there and the global supply chain issues and so forth. So there may be a need to establish an emergency meeting to kind of do the bucket review like we did last time, the easy bucket, the not so easy, and the worst case last resort bucket of value engineering items. We don't have too many that are left in the easy bucket. So anyway, just wanted to let you know that that's something that between Compass and Dorn Whittier we'll be taking a very close look at when the numbers come in, and we've got some ideas on things that we can do to make sure we stay in the budget. Also on the 12th, there's the Conservation Commission continuation hearing. And on the 24th, we'll be submitting our 60% CD to MSBA. Also in January, we don't have dates set yet, but we'll be looking to circle back with any local officials for a final review. This will be, again, this is our kind of a last opportunity to meet with anyone to review the project before we finalize everything. And then at some point during January, Compass and Dorn Whittier will be taking a close look at pre-qualification criteria for GC and subcontractors. So we'll be beginning that process then. Looking ahead to February, I believe it's the 3rd. is the SBC meeting. I'm not sure if I have that right. And then
11th, Rob.
the
Yeah, the
11th.
11th.
Okay. Yep. Sorry, I'll fix that. And then the 15th of February, we're expecting a response from MSBA from their review. We'll respond to their review, and then the 28th of February, we plan to submit our 90% construction documents to the cost estimators. And then during the month of February, finalizing general contractor and subcontractor pre-qualifications. Any other questions on the 3-month look ahead?
Rob, where did we end up on the, we've had a lot of conversations about the fields and kind of trying to space that out and so forth. Did we resolve that, or is that coming before the Conservation Committee?
So we've been working on widening the soccer field to accommodate the 5 extra yards there. And so in the drawings that we are submitting to the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission, we have that update. I don't have it available today to share with you, but we are planning to submit that. It's just a slight widening of that road, like we've been talking about.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Rob, when you submit for the cost estimates at different points, do you also give them sort of a summary of changes, modifications you've made on your end? Or do they just
No.
figure it out as if it was bid?
Right. Yeah. They go back through all of the drawings and do takeoffs all over again on the building. And so they just take a fresh look. They aren't relying on us to give them any sort of an updated information.
Brian, MSBA's biggest concern would be any programmatic changes. So
Okay.
without those happening, they'd be good to go as long as their cost is coming in fine.
So when we get estimates at these different points, the understanding is it's really a fresh estimate. It's a new estimate. It's not just an updated estimate.
Exactly. Yep. It's absolutely fresh. All the takeoffs are all done all over again. They send out the mechanical drawings to their mechanical cost estimator. They send out the site stuff to their site specialist to price up, and then they do all the takeoffs all over again. Yep.
Just one more question. I was just wondering about what are the sort of broad parameters for the contractor pre-qualifications, and how much is allowed by public bidding?
When you say broad parameters,
when you say you're looking at pre-qualifications for, I imagine those are contractors you expect to bid.
so yes,
Brian, it's a, well, maybe I'll just quickly, it's a
Sure.
statutory process. In other words, there's a full sort of prescriptive scorecard you do. So anybody can submit. I mean, it's open to anyone to submit, but then you go through a process, and whoever gets to 70, there's about, I think, 4 categories, broad categories of things you look at: capacity, similar experience, references, the staffing, and then it's scored, which obviously is somewhat subjective, but it's scored, and whoever gets 70 or more is pre-qualified. Whoever reaches that limit. So it's an important, when we get closer to it, we did this for the other projects in Westwood, 4 years ago, whatever. And, we'll be talking more about it, because the makeup of that committee is also sort of kind of prescribed. So it's a representative from Compass, a representative from Doran Whittier, and then representatives from the town. And so that's something we'll get into more detail like Rob says, probably toward the end of January or sometime in January, talking more about it.
Okay, thanks,
And-
that's
and-
helpful.
And just following up on that, so within those categories, there is a prescriptive kind of process, but there's also some leeway from that allow us to have some very specific criteria that we would want to include in there. For example, on references, one thing that we like to do is not just see what kind of experience they have on other similar projects. We want to see the exact people that they are going to be providing to this project and check their references, because we've found that ultimately you could have two general contractors. One's got a great reputation, maybe the other one not so great, but ultimately it's who's assigned to the project, who's the site super, and it's going to be there day to day, and what's his or hers experience and capability, and ability to work with other people and manage other people. So there are some specifics like that we can kind of drill down and fine tune in the process. Anything else on the look ahead?
I just had a quick question on projects that are underway that have been slowed down because of the hard opportunities to get information and supplies and all of that. So are there any estimates out there now with construction projects beginning on getting wood, getting all these supplies and all of the tie-ups? Is that being built into any estimates of it's going to cost months, or what parts of the projects will be delayed? Is that a part of the planning of these projects based on the last 3 or 4 months and where things are going to be in the future?
Yeah,
That's kind of
well, yeah, that's a critical question, Charlie, because this volatility is going to continue in 2022. That's happening now around supply chain and all that. So, we are watching it every day, and we talk with a lot of people, and I know Doran Whittier does too, and we're sort of constantly kind of processing that information. It changes. What's an issue now may not be an issue 6 months from now, and something else would be. So that's a major, that's a big consideration, and we're trying to be as proactive as possible, given the fact that you really can't predict what impacts are going to happen, what it might look like in 6 months. But I think it's probably the primary focus around construction planning right now is that issue around timing and supply chain. We have one benefit, believe it or not, in the fact that we have a long site prep process with the ledge removal, which is not a supply chain issue. That would happen pretty much like a normal economic times. So that buys us some time. So some of these things that have long lead times, we'll be able to, we have that sort of built-in buffer in the beginning to buy us some time before we need it. But it's a big issue, and I mean, I'm sure we're going to be talking a lot more about that with this committee as we get closer to it.
Thank you.
And does Tim, does the MSBA, I don't know if do they allow to pre-buy things or secure things early? Because we also have the advantage of a large site, which I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that
something
that could happen?
It's not the MSBA, but the statute allows for, and we would encourage, we're doing this on other projects, that they, paying for material stored, that's called stored material. So we would allow for it to be, well, you have to, it's under the statute, but you can pay for stored material. You make sure you have proper insurance and title transfers and all the things you need to do to protect it. But, and in this case, we probably would really encourage as much as possible when they can bring things on site or put them in warehouses or whatever, that we would want to pay for it once we check and make sure it's, it is what it is. That the process around paying for stored material, that's been around forever. And it's just now we actually would encourage it. Normally we sort of don't want to get too far ahead and let that happen as much, but now I think we would encourage it.
I think Brian was asking whether the MSBA would purchase any, or if the school district would purchase any in advance of the GC
No.
going out to bid. Is that your question, Brian?
No, Rob, I was just wondering if there were limitations from the public procurement process or MSBA on how you could do that.
Oh, okay, okay.
And then also, is that entirely the contractor's decision, or can Compass and Doran Whittier, you can probably suggest, but you can't, I guess as long as we're willing to pay for it in advance, right?
I mean, they would want to, I'm sure that we're all motivated not to have a supply chain issue delay anything, because they don't want to do that either. So I think it is ultimately, it's really going to be a product of getting the material approved and in fabrication and shipped, more than probably any disagreement around doing it, because they would definitely want to do it. I mean, they you know, to the extent they're not going to have to go out, you know, the issue comes around warehousing costs and things like that you sometimes have a debate, but you know, that's something that everyone would be aligned to try to get the material.
As part of the specification and then the submittal process that we will be asking them for the schedule, and Compass and Doran Whittier will be pushing for that schedule to be, shall we say, started as early as possible, so that they can we can approve the material and therefore place the order, and then it's just a question, and then finding a place to store the material until we need it. So that's a process we will be pushing in the early part of the construction schedule.
Great. We'll continue on, and if anyone has any other comments or questions on that, we can certainly circle back. So with the aesthetics and design subcommittee, we really wanted to get a handle on where the color range was that the committee is interested in. And so we used this building as an example. And ultimately, the group came to a consensus. This sort of middle range was roughly in the area of the color range that they were looking for, more brown rather than orange red, but this sort of middle ground, not too bright, not too dark. Don't want it to be, you know, this dark brown, excuse me, color that kind of gets lost in the woods, as Brian said. But at the same time, you know, is bright and lively and inviting. So we laid out some of the samples outside and took a little walk out there to see the different samples that we brought. This was the panel that we had shown months ago. And we kind of laid some of these different tiles up against the stone and kind of thumbs up, thumbs down. And so ultimately these three here was the range that we're kind of shooting for. And so I think Doran Whittier is given a little bit of leeway to kind of continue to work with this sort of palette. And we'll have a mock-up put up with a much larger selection of tiles to look at and compare and fine tune before you know, it actually gets installed. And then ultimately, so this is our kind of color palette here for exterior materials: the stone, the brick, and the terracotta. And then looking at
Sorry,
some
Rob,
of the
before we move on, does anyone have any comments about that from the SBC? I just want to make sure that everyone's on board. Okay. All right. Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, so there are a few more slides related to this. So we looked at, you know, this is our current rendering. This was a revision trying to make it a little bit darker, the darker brown with a narrow range of tile. And then this is a slightly broader range of tile. And so this is ultimately what the subcommittee is more interested in as a general consensus. So as I mentioned, don't want the building to get lost into the woods if too brown or if the range is too close. Allows for more variation with the range of tile to, so you can kind of see the effect from the distance. And we'll use a mock-up to review as another opportunity prior to final acceptance. Does anyone on the aesthetics and design subcommittee, have I got that right? Does any other comments?
I was just wondering, Rob, can you, I just want to check in that your team is in agreement with our input, because we would rely on you to tell us, I think, if we're off.
Yeah, no, we are in agreement. I think this is a good selection. And, with the ability to have a little bit of some of our professional judgment with the tiles when we get a larger mock-up put together, I think we're in a good spot.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'll add for people that aren't on the committee is like what this looks like in sunlight is very different than what it looks like without sunlight. And that was one thing we were a little bit challenged with. So, obviously we'll leave it somewhat to what, you guys think is the experts given our guidance.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Tony. And this is one example. Actually, Tony had mentioned this when we were looking at it. If you look at the brick here, you've got some very dark brick. Up close, someone might say, oh, geez, is that going to be the color of our building? And then you look at others that, so there's actually quite a range just in the high school brick. But when you stand, further back, a lot of that just kind of gets blended, and you don't really see that, this is a super dark building. And so it's the same kind of idea, is to have some variation in there to give it some texture and nuance. The second item that we talked about was the walkway canopy. And so there were a couple of decisions around that. Very early on in some early renderings, we had a walkway canopy with a central column in the middle and some wood integrated into it. As the design development process continued, and we needed to firm up the design for that canopy, we streamlined that and made a all tube steel column and beam, and moved it to offset. And at that time, it was like, well, can we circle back again and take another look at this a little bit more closely, this decision? So that's what we did. And so these are the decisions that we kind of went through. So this is the offset columns with the tube steel that we've been seeing in the renderings that we developed. This is all the wood slats in the ceiling up above. So this is Doug fir. Typically on this exterior, it's a very durable wood that can be used outside. And then this was an alternative to that, which would have the wide flange, and then those wood integrated into the wide flange beams. And ultimately, the group decided that it seemed to make more sense to go with the tube steel, considering that the wood, tends to deteriorate and age and discolor over time, particularly portions that are exposed to the weather. We also looked at whether the column should be in the center or offset, and ultimately the group decided that they prefer the tube steel because of the concern with the discoloration and degradation. Retaining the wood at the underside of the roof deck still provides this warmth that's desired. The offset columns were preferred for ease of pedestrian travel and clearing in the wintertime. And then also would like to have the columns actually set down below the slab so we don't have these concrete pedestals, and then apply an epoxy seal at the base. Ken had mentioned some concern with the concrete bases that he's seen on other schools where they've had to replace that and patch it and deteriorate it. There would still be some maintenance needed for any low portions of the columns, but sanding down and repainting is a much easier process than dealing with the spalling concrete at the bases. Any other discussion from the aesthetics and design subcommittee on any of that?
I think a lot of the decisions were based, for this one in particular, were based on operational considerations. In terms of we asked sort of Ken and what he thinks is easier for him operationally, and also, Emily with the teachers and the students and the traffic flow. Ultimately, I think that's the large reason why these decisions were made.
And I just tag on for the larger group that this was pretty much consensus among everyone. There wasn't any disagreement. It's pretty.
Yeah, agreed. Does anyone from the SBC have any questions or comments or thoughts on this? Okay.
All right. All right. So that's it from me. I don't know if there's anything else on the agenda.
So nothing under discussion. Rob, you had, do we need to vote on this, or is it enough for the SBC just to sort of, I don't know.
It wouldn't hurt to ask the SBC to accept the recommendations from the aesthetics and design subcommittee.
Okay. All right. Can I get a motion from someone to accept the recommendations as presented today?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Doing a roll call. Brian,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
okay, John,
Yes.
Charlie,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
Mary Kate. Is Mary Kate
Yes.
here? Oh,
I'm
great.
here. Yes.
Okay, Jen,
Yes.
Abby,
Yes.
Lemma,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Tony. Did we lose Tony? I think we may have. Emily
Yes.
and Mike.
Yes.
Okay, motion's carried. All right, great. Okay, moving on to the actual action items. So first we have a vote to authorize the amendment for Compass project management for construction document and construction administration phases. I actually included a memo in your packet on this. I just wanted to run through it really quickly. So this is as a result of the vote and us moving forward. As you recall, last meeting, we did approve an amendment to Doran Whittier contract to move us into the next phase of this project and really to carry us through to close out. So this is the same kind of amendment for Compass's contract. If you look in the memo, I think that's the easiest place to look at. So the first section shows the fees for this amendment that are set forth in this amendment. You can see they total $1,885,070. We've broken it up into the total amount and then the phase duration, and then we're doing monthly payments during that phase duration. That's how it's going to work out. And so that's what is in amendment number 5, the thing we're voting on today. I don't know if anyone has any questions about these numbers. I think what's helpful actually is to look at the next section. So as you recall, we way back, I think in schematic design, submitted to the MSBA their form 3011. This is when we came up with the budget, that $87.8 million that ultimately we had presented and we're all working on. And in that, it was a very detailed analysis of line items. So what we did here is we showed and that's a not to exceed, right? We had said to the MSBA, we're not going to go over this 87.8 number. So this second chart is a comparison of what we had put in that form 3011 with what this amendment number 5 contract amount is. As you can see, we're actually a little bit under. We're about $60,000 under where we were. I don't know. I think things were just a little bit coming in a little bit differently, with particularly, if you remember the design development, that first line item, that was the amount we approved back in the spring at town meeting. So that 100,000 was for design development that they performed over the summer. That's been authorized. We've been approving that as we go on. And then the rest of it, the 205,000 down, that's all in this amendment. So that's why that contract amount at the end is $100,000 more than the number in the first section. But I thought that would be helpful to to show to everybody that we're fairly close to what we had estimated with the MSBA. And then finally, this third graph shows exactly how much we are contracted with Compass from the initial contract all the way through to amendment number 5, and that's a total of $2.4 million. So does anybody have any questions on this amendment number 5 or any of the Compass numbers or any of the comparisons? No? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve amendment number 5?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Brian,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Charlie,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
Mary Kate,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Abby,
Yes.
Lemma,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and I am a yes. Motion is carried. Okay, next we have a vote to approve the meeting minutes of November 5th, 2021. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
How about a set? Okay, any discussion on the minutes? All right, Brian,
Sorry. Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Charlie,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
Mary Kate,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Abby,
Yes.
Lemma,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
and Mike.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Motion is carried. Finally, a vote to approve payment of invoices totaling $376,556.50. That is broken up into Compass Project Management's fee of $28,000 and a Door and Whittier fee of $348,556.50, which I believe is the result of the construction development phase. Is that correct? Construction document phase? Yeah, so that's why that amount is larger than normal. Anyone have any? Oh, sorry. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Okay, any discussion on the invoices? All right, Brian,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Charlie,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
Mary Kate,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Abby,
Yes.
Lemma,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and I am a yes. Okay, moving on to new business. I actually have 2 items. The first is I would like to introduce Brian Jarvis. I should have done this under the chair's report. Apologies. Brian is with Compass Management. And you're going to see Brian more and more and more. He is really going to be, now that we're moving into construction, he's going to be running that. And Brian, I don't know if you want to just say a couple words. I know you've worked with Westwood before, so you're familiar to some people on this call, but I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce yourself.
As Maya said, Brian Jarvis with Compass, project director, will be more involved during the construction phase, working with Chin and the team. Good to see some familiar faces. As she mentioned, I was project manager on the fire station and also on the police station project. I've worked with Doran Whittier in the past as well and several other projects, so good to be back. And good to be back on this project. This looks like an exciting project. So I will be kind of the day-to-day liaison as well, kind of filling in for Tim as Tim kind of moves to the background a little bit, but he'll still be involved throughout the whole project. But I'll be here through construction. A little bit on me. I've been with Compass basically since day one, over 12 years now. A lot of MSBA projects, a lot of public projects. So I think you're set up to have an exciting project. So looking forward to it.
Great. Thank you, Brian. Welcome. We're excited to have you. I think we'll be in good hands. And then finally, under new business, I just wanted to mention, so as everyone knows, Westwood does have a permanent building committee. John is a member of that. And so the permanent building committee typically steps into municipal projects once construction starts, or at least a little prior to construction. So we are working out how this committee and the PBC are going to interact and move forward. There will be a little bit of reorg. We're just not sure what that looks like yet. But to the extent that you want to stay involved, everybody, we would love everyone to stay involved. But if you feel like, this is just too much or too much of a commitment for you, you should just let me know. We can discuss. I think that there's certain people we have to have stay on as per the MSBA, certain roles within the community. But I certainly don't, I'm conscious of, I've always been conscious of everyone's time. And I know that it is. So anyway, the short of it is we're going to be reorging. We don't know what it looks like yet, but to the extent you're feeling a little overwhelmed, just let me know and we can talk it through. And I think that's it. Does anyone have any other new business?
I just have a question. And I know it's partly going to be the work of the school committee, but also I think this committee could be a great value. I've always had an interest in this, the school in the woods, the teaching in the woods. And I really see a wonderful opportunity here. And I'd like to see if there's something we could be doing on this committee with regard to things that may relate to construction and where things are, on how we can introduce science into the schools because of the location. We're right in a beautiful location where there's an awful lot of nature. And I know when we visited Needham, they had a lot of work that they used to do outside with the kids going out, taking walks and things like that. So I'm kind of interested, before we go beyond taking advantage of that, on how we can into the curriculum, not just for the school itself, but possibly bring in other schools in for parts of a day to take advantage of what we have there. So I'm just kind of interested, before you get too far along, are there things in the construction that could be sensitive to being able to take advantage of the teaching of the on the location, being near the woods? We have a wonderful resource in Westwood Hill Reservation that does this all the time, in being innovative in a school, in a curriculum, just because of the location. And also, the experience Durham Whittier may have encompassed with other systems that have done this, like the Needham School, where, things in, that they've taken advantage of where they are in making it a better education. But that's more a future topic, but I'm just curious whether this committee could add to that discussion as well as the school committee.
Yeah, thanks, Charlie. I think what may be helpful is, I'm not sure that this committee is the right place for it. I think maybe it would be, it could be maybe, and Emily, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe Allison, working with Rob or Don or just, trying to understand if there's those opportunities. I think this committee would be more focused on the actual construction as opposed to the educational component. But it's a good idea. I don't know, Emily, what do you think?
No, I think that sounds right. And we would want to get our elementary science coordinator and our elementary science specialist involved, some teachers as well. But Charlie, we're definitely thinking about those things. In fact, that MSBA presentation yesterday, the opening seminar that I was a part of was just about that. It was about the educational vision for this type of school. So we are excited and thinking about it.
Yeah, so maybe we'll take that to another committee. All right, any other new business?
Just like to wish everybody happy holidays.
Yes, it is December and a happy new year, right? We're not going to see each other until the new year. So
oh yeah, it's Hanukkah, Christmas is coming. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Wait, did you say Santa was coming?
Oh, Christmas. I've been naughty, coal only.
All right, anything else? Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I've lost my roll call here. Brian,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Charlie,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
Mary Kate,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Abby,
Yes.
Lemma,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and I am a yes. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Happy holidays.
Happy
New
holidays,
Year.
everyone.
Happy holidays.
We will see you